Hi, my name is Nessa. I'm from Cat in the Moon Soap, and I wanted to put together a video to show how I make column soap molds, custom column soap molds. If you've ever heard the saying by Bill Gates, something like, you should always hire a lazy person to do a hard job because they'll find the easiest way to do it. That's me. That's me making column molds. So a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not saying that my advice is good advice or that you should follow it. I'm just saying this is how I do it. So we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is find the picture of whatever you want to make into a column mold. I'm gonna let Google spell that for me. And the reason I like using the silhouettes is because you can get a really good idea of what it's going to look like. If you go with a picture that requires a lot of detail, it might come into the final product looking a little bit weird or looking not as you intended. So just pick any picture you like, basically. Try and keep in mind how it's going to unmold, how difficult it's going to be. If you pick something with a lot of curves like this, you're not going to get this out of a silicone mold. It's just going to be way too difficult. Likewise, if you have a picture with a lot of really, really small parts, that's going to be like this. I mean, this looks like it would be good. Apart from this one arm here, I think that would snap off, especially given the size of the silicone molds. So you want to find something that kind of doesn't have too many curves, doesn't have like a big empty space in here. You'll never get that out with silicone. And you've got to keep in mind that when you're unmolding soap as well, it's a little bit soft, even if you're using melt and pour. So something like this would be really, really good. There's no obvious thin bits that you'd need to take out of the silicone. There's no weird curves. However, this looks like a potato with a tail, so I'm probably not going to use it. I'm going to go ahead and pick something out, and I'll see you back here. Okay, so a very long time later, I did manage to find a mermaid that I think might work. We can see that this arm might be a little problematic, but we'll give it a go. Basically, we want to convert this picture file into a file that a 3D printer can read. So that would be an SVG or an STL. If you have Photoshop or Illustrator, you can just save as SVG. That'll be easy. If you don't, like I do, we can do this online. Go to Google, type in online-convert. Go to the first link. We want to do an image converter. Scroll down to SVG here, convert image to the SVG format. Choose your mermaid. And then wait for it to upload. We're going to start the conversion. And click here to download your file. And that's it. That's done. Easy. After that, we're going to head over to TinkerCAD. Now, TinkerCAD is a free 3D digital software. It's kind of, and if you are a complete beginner to this, like I am, I think this is just super easy. When you make an account, it will take you through a really basic tutorial. I think it's worth doing. It doesn't actually take that long, maybe 10-15 minutes, and it gets you the basics of what you need to do without being a designer. So go ahead, make yourself an account. It'll send you an email, authenticate your account, then go ahead and sign in. Okay, so I've signed in and you can see it's come up with this tutorial here. Do give it a click through. It is actually interesting. I'm going to ignore it to now and just get to what I want to do. We're going to create a new design and we want to grab that SVG file that we just made once it loads. So we're going to import it here using this button. Choose your file and choose the mermaid SVG. There it is, it's come up, you can see it's going to work, and hit import. So this is enormous. Basically my grid is set to millimeters, and what I'm going to do is hold down shift to keep the proportions and just make it a little bit smaller so it fits on here. Just drag it down just like you would with any picture. Like I said, my grid is in millimeters, and I kind of know how big I want to get this. Basically, my soap is about 6.5 centimeters wide, so I definitely want this to be a little bit smaller. Let's say 5 centimeters, and that's way too tall, so let's make her 4 centimeters. If the proportions aren't right, you can just keep dragging her proportions until you get it the way you want to look. I think she's looking okay. So if we know that this grid is millimeters, we can see this arm is going to be really small. I wouldn't go under 2 or 3 millimeters. I think I'm pushing it with this arm, but I think it'll be okay. We'll see how it goes. So once you've got your main picture in here, I'm going to go and flip her over just so she's sitting up. Here we go. I'm using this arrow here at the top to pull her. You don't need to do this, but I just do. And what I'm going to do from here is grab this little box here, and I'm going to make this about 15 centimeters wide, which is 150 millimeters. There we go. Let me grab that. 150. Done. And there we are. 3D mold. Insert, made, done, easy. So when you get to this point, basically what you want to do is just have a look and just check. Like this bit in here might be a little bit weird for the silicone. I'm not sure. We'll have to give it a go. Okay, so from here, once you've done, you want to export the file. Hit export. I use .stl. It's going to download it there. If you open it in Windows, it's going to give you a little bit of a preview of what it's going to look like when it's printed. Awesome. I have a 3D printer shop near me, so I'm going to email this off to them. I'll put a link in the description for those of you that are in New Zealand. Okay, so I've got my 3D print back. I've got this poster mailing canister here. I got this from Wickles. I think it was about $6, and this is going to be the case for my mold. So basically you want to make sure that your canister firstly is going to fit your 3D print in it. And not only is it going to fit in it, but it needs to have a little bit of space around the perimeter so the edges aren't touching. I've also got mixing container, a measuring jug, and a hot glue gun. So basically from here, the next thing I want to do is figure out how much silicone we need for the column mold. So I'm going to do this off camera, but I'm going to cut this in half. I don't know if you can hear my cat yelling in the background. I'm going to cut this in half. I'm going to place my 3D print in here, and I'm going to fill it with water. I'm going to fill it with water to about 1 centimeter higher than the 3D print. Then I'm going to take that water, I'll pour it out into a jug and see how many milliliters it is, and that's how many milliliters I need of silicone. Okay, so I've cut down my canister to a better size for the mold. The next thing you want to do is glue your 3D print to the bottom of the canister. So that's why these mailing tubes are really good, because the bottom actually comes out and then goes back in. You don't have to worry about sealing the bottom up, and it makes it really easy to glue your print on here. So you really need a really good bond between the 3D print and the bottom of your silicone mold. Trust me, you do not want your print to be floating to the surface while the silicone is setting. If the silicone isn't set, it will just push the 3D print up and out of itself. And you do not want to be there holding it, waiting for silicone to set. Just trust me on that. If it does happen, what I hypothetically have found is a good way to prevent it, or to way to sort of mitigate the damage, is actually get a paper cup and stick it in top, fill it with water, and the weight of the paper cup will hold the 3D print down. You'll lose the top of your silicone mold probably, but it's better than standing there for half an hour holding holding your 3D printed model down, waiting for silicone to set. Just trust me on that. Now you want to make sure with silicone that it's really mixed together. You do not want uncured silicone on your mold. Basically it's really sticky. It's not set. It will pick up all, it's just horrible to touch. It'll pick up all the dust and cat hair and fur, and it's just awful. If you do find that you haven't mixed enough and your silicone isn't quite cured properly, just leave it for a few days. You might get lucky and it might just take a little bit more time to cure those bits that haven't mixed properly. It's a little bit like soap, like you just leave it for a little while and come back to it later, and hopefully it will cure up over time. Okay, so I've got this unwrapped from the cardboard container, and it's time to think about how I'm going to cut this. That's going to make it the easiest to get soap out without it snapping around these delicate edges. So I'm probably going to cut it down the sides here, no, this way. And so it pulls apart this way, and I think that would be the best way to make sure that these really thin pieces don't come apart. My old ones that I've done before, the way that I cut the silicone mold is just by making a zigzag down either side. And what this zigzag does is it allows you to lock your silicone column together, line it up straight, and then what I do is I cover this with rubber bands or hair bands, old hair bands. And so it's really locked in. I didn't have enough silicone to reach the top of the 3D mold. So I do have gaps at the bottom and at the top, which means the soap, when you pour it, will come straight through. So the best way to deal with this is to grab a soap mold, put your silicone mold in it, and just remember that silicone adheres really well to silicone. And instead of doing the zigzag mold, I think I'm gonna do a straight cut with maybe a zigzag in the middle, just for that lining up, locking in, and cut this probably off camera because it does get a little bit frustrating. Okay, time to mix up melt and pour. Now I make melt and pour myself, so it's palm free. I'm kind of in these little color blocks at the moment. I think I'm gonna go for dark green kind of color.